Alright everyone, let's go ahead with our first major texture for our library. This is going to be a wood texture, and it's going to be a relatively realistic one. So, we're going to go ahead and create a new document. And I normally like to work in powers of 2, but for a library, that's not necessarily so. Sometimes we're constraining our document to a size that works best for the operations we're going to do. So we're going to make this one 1500 by 1500. And we get this nice white background. But we need to add some color to it. I'm going to go ahead and rename it first to color. And I'm going to select this medium brown, which is 754215 in your color picker. And we will just go ahead and fill that in. So now we have a base color, and this is a color that we can come back to and change to a different color anytime that we like, which will allow us to get a lot of different types of wood for our library. But this is just kind of a medium brown paneling color. So we're going to go ahead and create a new document, and we're going to make sure that our colors are set to black and white by hitting D, and then we're going to create a cloud pattern. So filter, render, clouds. And you should get something like that, which does not look very wood-like at all, but we're going to do some things to make it wood-like. So we're going to hit Control-T so we can make adjustments to this, but the adjustments we need to make are much larger than our viewable canvas right now, and I don't really want to zoom in and out. So I'm just going to go up, and in my height setting, I'm going to change that from 100 to 600%. And then I'm going to hit enter. Alright, that's looking pretty good. But we still need to get some of the graininess going, so we're going to add another filter. This time we're going to go to blur and motion blur. I'm going to make sure our angle is set to 90, so it's running straight up and down. Then we're going to blow out our pixels at like 225. There we go. Now we're starting to kind of get that grain look to it. Alright. Now we're going to go up to image. And we're going to go down to adjustments. And then we're going to wander down here to posterize. That looks terrible. That's okay. We got to trust the process. So we're going to take our levels at 4 and we're going to kick that up to 25. That looks a lot more like wood. Alright, we're getting there quick. We've got a couple more things to do and we will have a basic wood pattern. So we're going to go back to filter and down to stylize, and then we're going to do find edges. And I don't even know how well it'll show up on the recording, but we have a very nice wood grain pattern, but it's very hard to see. So back to image, to adjustments, and to levels, and we're just going to push our black all the way up to where these first lines are. And there we go. We've got a pretty good looking wood grain pattern going. But we can do a couple more things to really make this nice. So we're still on our grain layer, which reminds me, let's go ahead and rename this to grain. So we're going to want to save this PSD so that we can make adjustments to it for different textures later. Alright, now we're going to go back to filter. We're going to come down to noise, add noise. We're going to make sure that we're set on uniform and monochromatic, so that it's completely black and white. And then bump up your amount to about 65%. Alright, now this looks worse, but again, trust the pattern. We're going to go back to filter again, and we're going to do another motion blur. This time we're going to bring that down to just about 15 pixels. Now we're starting to get that nice grain in there that looks very oakish to me. Alright, now if we were to set this layer to multiply, we would have a pretty nice, basic, realistic wood texture. But we can push this a little bit further. So I'm going to take this back to normal for the moment. And then I'm going to copy the layer. I'm going to hit Control J. Come on, computer. There we go. And I'm going to rename this to Depth. And we're going to bring that grain out some more. Alrighty, so we're going to pull this down below our grain, and we're going to turn our grain off for a minute. And you'll see why we want it below in a second. So the first thing we have to do is we have to invert this so that our grain is more white and our in-between is more dark. So we're going to hit Control I, which is our invert command, so we get something like this. Then we're going to push our levels again. Always with the level pushing. This time we're going to enter in some numbers. We're going to do 80 here. I'm going to leave it 1, and I'm going to tab over and make the 255. We're going to bring that down to 153. So we get very nice black and white. Alright, now the opacity of this one, we don't really want this plowing through. So we're going to take our opacity from 100% down to 10%. Now we just have to change our levels or our layers over to our proper blending mode. So for our depth we want screen. We're going to turn our grain back on and make that multiply. And doesn't look any different. That's okay. We're going to go back to our depth, grab our move tool, and I'm going to use my right and my down arrow keys to punch that just a couple pixels. That's 3, maybe 2, we'll see. Down a couple. Alright, so I ended up going 3 and 3. And now you see you should have a really, really nice wood texture with a nice amount of depth to it, much like you'd see on a tabletop or something like that. So, this can be a great base texture for just about anything. In 3Ds you can use it for texture. You could use it as background or replacement texture in still photos. And you could use it with a little manipulation. You could use it for games. So, we've got this one all set up. Be sure to save out a copy as a PSD, which I'm not going to do at the moment. But make sure you have a PSD so it keeps your layers intact. This is why. Once you have this basic layer, now we can come back into color. And we can fiddle with that. We can make it more red. Maybe something like that. And change that color up. Gets us kind of a mahogany cherry look. Or we can go in and push it towards more of a honey pine. Maybe something like that. And that way you can build with this one PSD a really nice library of different wood types. Now they're all going to have this kind of grain pattern, which I personally think is very hardwood, particularly leaning towards oak. And you can go in and just recreate what we did a few times, save it out maybe as wood base 1, 2, and 3 or something like that, and you will get a different pattern, but it will still kind of be the same style. But it is a great way to create a fairly vast collection of wood textures for your library very quick. And that's what this course is about, is creating our base library of textures. Alright, so that's a kind of realistic wood. Let's take a look at doing some other ones. I'll see you in the next video.